Trump's move to shut down the Department of Education may have a larger impact on red states. A CNN analysis found that the top 14 states that relied the most on federal dollars for their public schools in 2022 voted for President Trump last November. And while this funding could get redistributed to states directly, these federal dollars include financial assistance to schools with high populations of impoverished students. They fund special education programs, school improvements like classroom technology, after school and summer programs, and mental health and counseling services for students, as well as teacher recruitment. Randi Weingarten is with us now. She's the president of the American Federation of Teachers, which has about 1.8 million members, including educators from pre-K through 12th grade. Randi, just tell us, what is your biggest concern when it comes to essentially shutting down the Department of Education?
So thanks for having me. And the biggest concern is all the opportunity gaps that the federal government provides through the Department of Education. The federal education role is limited. There's no, except for, the Department of Defense schools, which are not run from the Department of Education, or the Bureau of Indian Affairs schools that are not run by the Department of Education. It doesn't control any schools. In fact, it's the states that control schools. So if President Trump doesn't like what's happening in education, it's the states and local school boards that do it. What the department does is there's about $100 billion. So a kid who has disabilities, a kid who is poor, a kid who's going to Head Start, a kid who's in a rural area, kid who is in a career tech ed program, a kid who gets a Pell Grant, a kid who's limited English proficient. Every single one of those kids, which are essentially most of our kids in public schools, they get basically 10% of every dollar that's spent on them is from the Department of Education.
Yeah, so
that's what I am worried about.
You have these critical programs like Title I, IDEA funding, and we should note they were established before the Department of Education was established. Could they be administered by a different agency?
Yes, Brianna, they can be. And in fact, just little fun fact, my predecessor, Al Shanker, didn't want the creation of the Department of Education. We wanted it to stay in HEW because we wanted families, we wanted it to be intact with family. So we did. So of course it could, but this is the problem. The governors that are going to be with Donald Trump, the president today, they've talked about block grants. So they're talking about taking this money away from kids and putting it into block grants and giving it as vouchers, which basically serve kids who are already in private schools. So our concern is that you actually need somebody who knows what they're doing about education. And that's why the Department of Education is the right place for this to happen. But I have another concern, which is this. A country's future depends on its education of its citizens. So right now, we are cutting all the research grants to universities that go to help fund cancer research, or fight or cut all these programs that help our youngest kids. What are we saying to parents? What are we saying to the public? And that's part of the reason why 6 out of 10 people in America, independents, Republicans, Democrats, say don't do this.
And we have heard even in some cases from Republicans in some states who worry as they look at the numbers of vouchers that have gone to people who are already in private schools. So there will be a question, of course, that they have to account for the achievement that may be lagging if they do change how some of these things are sent out. But I also want to ask you, Randi, I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you a little bit, Randi, because you know that teachers' unions, especially yours, has gotten a lot of criticism in recent years, especially after COVID. We saw, for instance, the support of overly broad school closures. That's one of the big examples. And that has fueled a lot of animus towards the Department of Education, towards teachers' unions. Do you reflect on that? I mean, what are you taking away from that in the position that that may have fueled sort of the support that allows President Trump to be in a position to do something that you find so problematic, like eliminating the Department of Education in all intents and purposes?
So, Brianna, COVID was a terrible time for us. And as you know, because I was on your show a lot and other shows, I wanted schools to be reopened as early as April of 2020. The issue was the fear and the issue was the safety issues. But COVID has really hurt in so many ways. But this has been a Republican talking point for a long time. And in fact, in the last couple of years, it was routinely put up in the Congress, and 60 Republicans voted against it the last time it was put up. The real issue is, how do we make sure that kids have the funding that they need, and we make sure that every single kid has a safe and welcoming environment and is one that is engaging and relevant. But I think we could all do a better job in terms of education. I'm just surprised that the president is not working with the teachers in classrooms throughout the country, as represented by their union, to make things better.
Yeah. Are you really surprised, Randi, by that? I'm curious. Randi Weingarten, thank you so much.
I mean, look, let me just say,
yeah,
we believe, like he does, in career tech ed. We think that high school should be more than college prep. We think that college prep is important, but high school should be career prep as well. I mean, the question really becomes, is education important in this country? And frankly, what you saw in the November elections is that in the places where education was on the ballot, public education won over and over again, including in the states that voted for Trump. So I think that this is issue about vouchers much more than it is an issue about how we ensure that each and every child has the opportunity they deserve.
Randi Weingarten, thank you so much for your time.